In today's Capitol Close-Up, we welcome Maryland's Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen to discuss the latest developments regarding Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man wrongfully deported to El Salvador. Senator, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Steve, good to be with you.
So a lot to get through, obviously, in a short amount of time, but let's focus right now on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I know you reached out to the embassy here in D.C., the embassy of El Salvador, to try to request a meeting with the president of El Salvador while he is in D.C., meeting with President Trump. Have you had any success?
I've not. I reached out to request that meeting to talk about the, as you say, illegal detention of Abrego Garcia. We've not heard back from the president at this point in time.
You also mentioned if you didn't hear back, then you'd be willing to go to El Salvador. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is, Steve. I'll be going later this week. If he's not released, we still hope that he will be released. But I think it's important that we go to El Salvador to show his family, his wife, his mother, his brother, his kids, that we're not giving up on this because, as you indicated, the Trump administration has admitted that this was done in error. And you can't just send somebody off to a notorious prison in El Salvador and say, whoops, that was a mistake. And that's why the Supreme Court, by a 9-0 ruling, said that the Trump administration had to facilitate his return.
So a couple of things. One, to your last point of sending someone to this notorious prison, is it more of an argument in your favor that this is someone who was not necessarily deported, but deported to the prison? How much of an impact does the prison make as opposed to someone being deported to El Salvador?
Well, both. I mean, he was here under protective status, and this is why the court, both the federal district court and the Supreme Court, determined that he can't just be essentially abducted from the country, that he gets his due process rights. That's a fundamental value that we have in this country. That's why the courts have been unanimous in their rulings here.
So now there's this legal limbo that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is in. The president of the United States is saying he can't do anything about it. It's up to the president of El Salvador. The president of El Salvador said yesterday at the White House he can't do anything about it. He doesn't want to do anything about it. His contention is that this is a Salvadoran citizen who's being held in El Salvador, and he considers him to be a terrorist. President Trump could do something about it, but at this point he says he's leaving it up to El Salvador. Okay, so that's the backstory there. The Supreme Court said that you have to facilitate this. He's caught in legal limbo right now. So even by going to El Salvador, Senator, what can you do? What plan might be in place now if this is someone who is caught between the presidents of two countries, neither of which is making moves to bring him back to Maryland, your jurisdiction?
Well, you can call it legal limbo, or you can call it outright defiance of a court order. And that's what President Trump is doing. He's defying a court order. Everybody knows that if he makes a request to the president of El Salvador to bring Abrego Garcia back, that would be complied with. After all, we are paying the government of El Salvador the money to keep these individuals detained. At the same time, the president of El Salvador, when he claims he has no power to release him, it's absurd. And this throwing around the term terrorism when this person has never been convicted of crime just shows the lies that we're hearing. I mean, that was just such an outrageous, bizarre episode at the White House the other day, where everyone's sort of saying, you know, I'm not going to let him go. I'm not going to try to let him go. I mean, this is in defiance of a court order. This country has stood for the rule of law and due process, and I'm going to go to El Salvador to try to see Abrego Garcia and also talk about his release. I will point out, Steve, that you know, the Congress has to approve funding from the United States to El Salvador, and I'm not going to support one penny if this Marylander continues to be illegally detained there.
Senator, keep us posted as to the journey to El Salvador, if it does in fact happen later this week or next. In the meantime, I appreciate you joining us this morning.
Good to be with you, Steve.
Thank you, Senator Chris Van Hollen, of course, Democratic Senator from Maryland. It's